everyone and welcome back to the Respawning UK YouTube channel. My name's Alex and today I'm going to be giving you a spoiler-free review of Ghost of Tsushima. To be a samurai was never a fantasy for me growing up. This may have been why when the first Ghost of Tsushima gameplay was shown off during E3 2018, I was nowhere near as impressed as I perhaps should have been. Despite my original lack of enthusiasm towards the title, I very much enjoyed Sucker Punch's previous titles, namely the Infamous series, and have felt during the marketing for Ghost of Tsushima that they deserve to be successful with this new franchise. Commercially and critically, it has been very well received by those who have played and reviewed it, and I can preface this review by confirming it is worth playing even if you possess the slightest interest in what you've seen of it so far.
Tell him I'm coming.
All of the images you see throughout this review on our website have been captured by members of the Respawning team, and the powerful graphical visual quality cannot be denied. I would go so far as to say that in the correct conditions, Ghost of Tsushima is capable of delivering some of the most stunning sights and landscapes possible for the current generation of consoles. For further examples of some of the incredible sights this game possesses, we have created the Respawning Gallery, which we have filled with our best photos taken in the game, visible on our website. You play as Lord Jin Sakai, a samurai warrior who survives the initial Mongol invasion of the titular island of Tsushima. Throughout the game, you battle against Mongol forces using your traditional samurai fighting experience, as well as learning dishonorable stealthy ghost tactics to level the playing field between Jin and his foes. Utilising 4 different stances for using Jin's katana, you unlock different upgrades and special combat abilities across the game's early hours, leaving the remainder of the game for unlocking additional combat options for them and your ghost weaponry, such as bows, smoke bombs, and of course, kunai.
Kosenkan!
Every inch of Tsushima breathes naught but outstanding and mesmerising natural beauty, best experienced on PlayStation 4 Pro and during the game's daytime hours, as the lack of sunlight subdues the most beautiful popping colours that the game has to offer. From fields as far as the eye can see of swaying white flowers to rolling hills of the best grass you have ever seen in a video game, Ghost of Tsushima will at the very least awaken the photographer within you. Before playing this title, photo modes were very much something intended for other players in games and not for me, but now I find myself switching into photo mode at the press of a button on the D-pad and tinkering for ages to capture the perfect snapshot of my adventure through Tsushima. The combat, as mentioned earlier, ranges from 4 different stances of using the katana, as well as an assortment of stealthier ranged weapons Jin can use to come out victorious in every fight. The battles really are where Ghost of Tsushima comes to life for me, for the rush of excitement I get every time one breaks out, to counting down the moments until the next fight when one finishes. Varying from a one-on-one fight to facing a whole squad of enemy Mongols, Jin must use every honourable attack and dirty trick he knows in order to survive and bring himself one step closer to his ultimate goal of liberating Tsushima from the invaders. Occasionally, the game combat will shift into a cinematic one-on-one duel between Jin and a rival desperate to kill him. In these fights, you cannot use projectile weaponry and must rely solely on your skill of dodging, parrying and striking at the best moment in order to win. Some of these encounters can prove quite grueling, aside from when playing on easy difficulty like I do most of the time, but the feeling of euphoria for conquering a long contested foe cannot be matched by anything else in this game. I have a feeling a couple of the duels in this title could seriously be contenders for my favourite boss fights of all time.
Not samurai, but she is a born killer.
I know the type.
No, you do not.
The sound design is absolutely inspired. The occasional wind instrument or gentle acoustic melody blends seamlessly with the breeze through the trees or the gentle trickle of a picturesque stream, working perfectly to add depth and further beauty into everything going on around you. The clash of sword on sword, complemented by the distant screams and yells of frightened peasants, lend an extra level of authenticity as each battle unfolds, simultaneously taking you further into every moment of the battle whilst reminding you of the fate of those around you should you fail. The opening of the story could be one of my very favourite introductions to a video game ever, though after this rush of excitement the story feels very basic through the first act and most of the second act. By the time the story kicks in again, I'd resigned myself to the thought that the plot only exists to connect Jin's journey across the map. But when the time finally came for the late, big game set pieces and plot twists, I loved every second of it. Most of the early story missions don't feel particularly special, or that a lot of effort really went into the design of them, but sometimes you will find an absolute gem, and you're thrust into a true samurai fantasy that you can't help but marvel at how cinematic it looks as you play.
Hold still.
I thought all the samurai died at Komoda Beach.
I was skeptical during the game's marketing when the developers said they had done away with a normal mini-map in Ghost of Tsushima, instead programming gusts of wind to direct you to your next objective. While it is a nice idea, in practice it falls flat where you consider the amount of times you'll be distracted by a battle or a pretty view, and I frequently found myself having to check I was still heading in the correct direction, which I found more immersion breaking than a simple map on screen, reassuring me I was on the right track. Gold star for effort, but better luck next time. Massive open worlds are at the top of my list for things I enjoy most in video games. And while the open world is undeniably beautiful to spend time in, aside from attacking Mongol strongholds or eliminating gangs of them that roam the roads, there isn't a great deal to do in it. Fox dens are scattered in the dozens across the map, and all that consists of doing is following a fox 100 meters or so in exchange for an arbitrary reward. The sheer number of them begs the question of why Sucker Punch bothered to include so many of them at all, other than to unnecessarily pad the game's length. You may already be aware that a commonly disliked trope in gaming that hasn't appeared for a while, mandatory stealth sections, makes a comeback in Ghost of Tsushima. Prior to playing, I was loudly against the return of this mechanic, but now I have experienced them as Sucker Punch intended, I can confidently say that this is the only game I have ever played that implements them without subtracting from my overall enjoyment of the game. Particularly early in the story, it makes sense that a lone samurai would do everything in their power to avoid raising any alarms while in hostile territory, and there are enough stealth options that ensures no pacing is lost during these frequent occurrences. Late game missions don't force stealth upon you quite as much, though the ones that do are among the most satisfying and tense missions in the game, and apart from games like Dishonored that make stealth an option rather than a rule, I found myself completely invested in and loving the stealthier sections far more than I expected to previously. One other mission very early on brought back another old and seemingly forgotten gameplay mechanic, which was escorting a group of NPCs through an enemy-held area without them being killed. At first this didn't seem like it would be an issue, until the second one of them was spotted and they threw themselves at the feet of their potential killers instead of fleeing or hiding. This led to a couple of irritating reloads where I decided to take the long way round to avoid all enemies altogether. If this is what the game had intended, I'd rather it had just said so, instead of leaving me with a group of painfully thick AI with loudly apparent death wishes. My assortment of small gripes with the gameplay pale in comparison to the memorable and powerful story ending. The final act of the game is a love letter from Sucker Punch to everything samurai, and the high level of detail and care they have packed into this adventure is indisputable. I give Ghost of Tsushima an absolute recommendation, and for its glorious world, addictive combat, though let down by a handful of questionable design choices and repetitive world exploration, I score it 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching this video review of Ghost of Tsushima. You can find my full written review on our website, respawning.co.uk. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we've got loads more content coming up very soon.